Hey guys, it's Nate, otherwise known as the 80/20 drummer, otherwise known as the other Nate Smith. Today I want to talk to you about a very simple problem. You see great drummers playing a solo or a fill, and it's got a certain polish to it. Then when you try it, it's not like that. The best way I can describe it is mushy. Kind of like trying to speak a language and tripping over your words, and your tongue doesn't seem to work and you end up muttering gibberish. Or else just repeating the same short sentence again and again. Sound familiar? Well, today we're going to break down 5 key reasons why the prose sounds so polished. 5 things that add up to the kind of magic when you see artists like Calvin Rogers on platforms like the Meinl YouTube channel. And by the end of this video, I'll give you some things you can take into the shed today to start playing better solos and fills. Your goal in the short to medium term should be to play simple ideas like this. Clearly and musically, off the top of your head and without memorizing anything. Ready? Let's get started. The first principle is stick height. When you watch a true master like Matt Garska, you'll see his playing has an organic grit to it, due largely to his tuning choices. But the reason he's able to get away with that is the extreme clarity of what he's able to put into the drum kit. I'm going to play you 2 examples, and I'm only going to change one thing. Here's example 1. And now, here's example 2. Maybe those don't sound so different until we speed them up. The difference is stick height control. To play solos that sound clean, you need to be able to differentiate between rim shots and unaccented strokes. Even if later on you choose to use some medium stick height strokes, like somebody like Keith Carlock. In fact, you should be able to play practically anything on the kit with ghost strokes with a maximum of 1 to 2 inches above the head, and rim shots at least 10 inches. If you don't believe me, go back and watch Meinl videos of people like Chris Coleman or Zach Grooves. Does every drummer do this 100% of the time? No. But in my humble opinion, you should be able to choose to do this before you choose whether to deviate from it. 2 very quick exercises to practice this. The first is paradiddles. But to make a reference that either will or won't age very well, paradiddles like you've never seen. Paradiddles with consistent rim shots, with the sticks at least 10 inches above the head, and ghost strokes nice and close to the head. The point isn't to be fast at this point. The point is to be consistent. Now, a little exercise I like to use with my students. We're going to alternate between paradiddles and singles in groups of 3. So you can either play this 4-note group or this 3-note group. And we can rearrange the pieces like letters on a Scrabble board. 4-3, 4-4-3, 3-4, 3-4-4, etc. Without worrying about where the 1 is, let's just try this. Now, you may notice something, which is a little, let's say, lag in your notes. Instead of it sounds a little like maybe not quite that exaggerated, but something like it. This brings us to principle 2, subdivision. When we watch great drummers play fast, and it seems a little magic, a big part of the reason is subdivision, which is to say consistent distance between any 2 notes. Just for fun, I'm going to improvise a little slowly with hopefully good subdivision. And we'll ask the video editor to speed this up to 2x to make me look like a legend. And when we try to play faster stuff on the drums in real life, any tiny inconsistencies get magnified. That's why it's so important to practice good subdivision. A great way to do that is with the metronome on 16ths, really slowly. So excruciatingly slow, you can hear the travel on every single note. Let's play this paradiddle exercise again, this time with the metronome and super slow. If you find that difficult, I want to just pause and observe something. We're playing the most basic stuff, but because we're looking in a finer level of detail, we're squeezing a lot of benefit from it. Think about if you applied that lens to everything you do on the drums. In an abstract way, that's a lot of what it takes to go from intermediate to advanced. Now, let's move this exercise around the kit a bit. We're going to take the same shape, but now instead of just playing rim shots on the snare for accents, we're going to place some of these accents on the toms. What you may notice is that when you do this, your 16ths develop a little lilt, meaning they're not all the same distance from every other 16th. So the second thing that can affect your subdivision is your need to move your hands from one surface to another. To practice this, I like to keep it really slow and put the metronome on every 16ths, then pay very close attention to locking up with every note. You may notice something else. As you move around the kit, your rim shots might start to have different tones. Same with your tom notes. It's here that we get into the third principle, zones. If I'm playing a solo or fill, I should be able to hit the part of the drum I'm aiming at with, let's say, 99% consistency. I pulled that out of thin air, but it's probably good to shoot for, given that we're not perfect. If I ask our intrepid editor to switch to the overhead camera, watch how I aim for the center of the snare, in either the center of each tom or a spot just forward of the center. If I were to dip my sticks in ink, we'd hope to see the majority of the dots within a circle about 1.5 inches across on each drum. The reason is that when we speed stuff up, let's say we're hitting everything a little off center and a little inconsistently. At faster speeds, that's going to add up to not sounding as clean. By the way, this does not mean you can't have your fills sound earthy, human, or organic. If we watch one of my favorite drummers, J.P. Bouvet, he has a very organic, human feel to his improvisation, but still has great clarity. The other thing I'll keep emphasizing is it's important to play with control before you choose to throw in some of these other sounds. Okay, back to our solos. In a minute, I'll show you some basic vocabulary to start improvising stuff like this. But before we get there, there's one more issue to deal with, flamming. As soon as we start playing hands and feet at the same time, there's the possibility of stuff not lining up. This is more of an issue when you're playing beats than solos and fills. And this is a video about playing solos, but it's still important to talk about for two primary reasons. First, there will always be situations when you want to play the hand and the foot together, even during a fill or a solo. Let me improvise just one. Next, while we won't be getting into this in this video, I believe it's important eventually to be able to do practically everything you do on the kit with the hi-hats going with the hi-hat foot. And that's another spot where, if things are flamming beyond a little human wabi-sabi, it's not going to sound good. One quick exercise for this. We're going to alternate between a 3-note group with 2 notes played with the lead hand and lead foot simultaneously and 1 snare tap, and a 4-note group with 1 additional snare tap. So it's a 3-note group and a 4-note group. Remember how at the beginning we made phrases with the paradiddles and singles? We're going to do the same thing here. The lead hand can either be on the cymbals or the hats, or even a dry surface like a tom rim. And we're just going to alternate 3- and 4-note phrases to make shapes. Don't worry about keeping 1, 2, 3, 4 in your head yet. But do pay attention to making sure your lead hand and kick drum strike exactly together. Okay, that's flamming. So let's just take a pause and I'll ask you, if you did all this right, would you like the sound of your solos and fills? For some of you, you might be like, I'm good already, in which case, great. But for the vast majority of drummers, there's still something missing. The actual vocabulary we're going to play. Which brings us to principle 5, having something to say. Say you learned all the grammar and pronunciation in a new language, but had no idea what to say. You'd be missing half the equation. So I'm going to give you what I must emphasize is a crash course into assimilating some very basic bits of common drum improv vocabulary, then an overview of how to fuse all of that together. Then if you want way more detail and depth on this stuff, you can check out my YouTube channel, The 80/20 Drummer. First principle, switching. I'm going to give you 2 basic idea kernels, and your job is to switch between them. The first idea is this. And the second is this. And the switch might look like this. Details to follow. Okay, so why do we do this? Let's say I just gave you something to play. You'd be able to practice that and perform it perfectly with enough time. But then when you were in a real life playing situation, you'd have to remember exactly what you memorized. Like only having one complete sentence you could just repeat verbatim instead of being able to talk to people in real conversations. But if I only told you to improvise, first, you wouldn't know what to play, and second, there are way too many things to keep your eyes on. So those details we went over in the first part of this video would drift and you'd just fall back into your old habits. Nope, to forge a path forward, we need to balance giving you just enough creative freedom that you're practicing using words in a sentence, but enough constraints that you learn the new way to play this stuff and don't start ignoring key details before they're fully ingrained. Whew. Got it? Okay, let's go over these again. Here's the first kernel. And here's the second. Now we're going to switch. When we play with these, we have to switch between these exact licks, but we have 4 things at our disposal: order, orchestration, dynamics, and tempo. We can change the order between the licks. We can orchestrate the accents to any drum or surface. We can play it loud or soft while maintaining that stick height differentiation I was talking about. And we can play the whole thing faster or slower. At the risk of running long, let me give you 3 more combos. Here's lick 1. Here's lick 2. And here's the switch. Next combo. Here's lick 1. And here's lick 2. And here's the switch. Finally, in a slightly more advanced one, here's lick 1. And here's lick 2. And here's the switch. This is more advanced because this is going to cross the bar line. Don't worry, you can work up to it. Now, another pause. That's the meat and potatoes of this lesson, but I quickly want to give you a preview of the future. Let's say you had a year to work on this stuff, or you were working together with me. Eventually, we'd want to combine all these switching exercises into a single lexicon so you could switch between and among any of like 5 or 6 patterns. Then, little by little, we'd inject more ideas. Practice fitting them together with your existing vocabulary. Then, they just become part of the lexicon. Finally, we'd start practicing just improvising, forgetting all the principles and letting your long-term memory and instincts take over. Anyway, I've just crash coursed you through 5 principles of why your solos maybe don't sound like the pros. Stick height, zones, subdivision, flamming, and vocab. And if you'd like to learn more about what I do, just search 80/20 Drummer on YouTube. Anyway, thanks again to Meinl for the opportunity to present this to you, and see you soon.